will never be.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another mini indie showcase developer interview. Mike Townsend here, along with Kyle Stevenson, and today we are joined by Eric Johnson, producer over at Vertigo, the folks behind Cook Serve Forever. Eric, hello.
How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're doing great. Thanks for being here. I think I could say, along with Kyle, seeing Cook Serve Forever being submitted for our showcase, we were both like, oh my God, yes, definitely. So seriously, thank you for coming on here to talk with us and being a part of the showcase this year. I really appreciate it.
That's really kind of you to say. And, obviously we are in a period, whatever you want to call it, a stretch of the, of time in the gaming industry where we really, these events are very important to us. Our studios that, maybe don't have an opportunity to partner up with a publisher or go triple or we're certainly not a AAA. We're quite a boutique studio, and we're just excited to get these kind of opportunities to put ourselves out there. We understand that as an indie, the interest comes and goes, right? Like it's almost like it can be a flavor of the hour almost situation. And then additionally, I have a strong belief that no matter how many people have heard of us, no one has heard of us. So it's an important, approach to, our marketing and our PR. So having you guys put this together, coming across it, and where I usually would come across, worthy opportunities and festivals for us to pursue, and then we went from there. So we're really excited to get the response from you guys and all the back and forth we've had since then.
Sweet. Yeah, dude. Before we even get to the game, you just said something like that is like that's like our mission statement with the showcase. It's like no matter how many times an indie has been shown, somebody will see it for the first time through us and the next showcase and the one after that. So there was always a bit of hesitation with a lot of the developers that were showcased this year, saying like they were very nervous that like they didn't have anything new to show, or that they were being shown during IGN's thing or the mix or so on and so forth. I said, hey, we're going to have a unique viewer. At least one person is going to be new and unfamiliar with your game, and that is more than worth it for us.
And from our side, we have to hit, folks 10, 12, 15 times with our game, with our, marketing, with our psychology of trying to say, hey, are you interested in this game? Would you like to maybe take your toe dip in it in terms of looking at the store page, maybe wish listing, etc. Yep. It takes a lot of effort. There is there is a couple of games out there, you'll see it every year, even in this market where, it's not necessarily a breeze. They did the work, right? They put in the work and they're getting great results because of that and stuff. And they're not necessarily pulling teeth for sales, but a lot of us are pulling teeth right now. So it's a market where it's a, you don't take anything for granted. You don't take a single sale for granted. You don't take a single set of eyeballs for granted, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's get into it. Can you tell me what Cook Serve Forever is for those who don't know?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys about it today. We're getting really close to its early access release, which is coming up in Q2 of this year. Yeah. Which we're almost into, obviously, being that it's March. Cook Serve Forever is the fourth iteration. I wouldn't call it the sequel, the direct sequel or anything to Cook Serve Delicious 1, 2, and 3. I'd say those were a little bit more in the line of direct sequels, even though we had pretty intense mechanic overhauls, but we still maintain the core, so to speak. Sure. This is stepping away a little bit from that core, and we're going out on a limb. We put our demo out on Steam Next Fest last month, got a really good response, a lot of good response from new players specifically, which is what we're trying to address with Cook Serve Forever. Cook Serve Delicious 3, really beloved game by the community, the hardcore folks that love us. We've been dubbed by some as the Dark Souls of cooking games, which we really enjoy that, right? But there's two sides to that, right? And we really don't want it's a balance, right? With Forever, we know we're not trying to take away the difficulty, the challenge, like the everything that people enjoyed with it, but the learning curve is too steep, and it has been on these games. And 3 especially was criminal in this regard. It did not give a whole lot of like soft landing to get into the game, and so this is going to be a different kind of approach. This is more of a rhythmic mechanic. You'll start feeling the rhythm and the tactile nature of cooking as you kind of proceed and get into the game with different kinds of button and key presses and things like that. But for those who don't know anything at all, we're a restaurant management series. We've been doing this since 2013.
God bless you guys for that. Incredible.
Yeah, in fact, before then actually, but yeah, 2013 I believe is Steam release. So we're kind of celebrating 10th anniversary of Cook Serve 1, which was obviously just a one man. I mean, I don't excuse me when I say obviously. It's obvious to me, of course, because I've been talking about
yeah,
this. I don't mean to say this like, oh, everybody knows this. No, Cook Serve Delicious 1 was just made by one person. His name is moniker is Chubbigans, aka David Galindo. He was the original designer of Cook Serve Delicious 1. He brought me on Cook Serve 2. We brought on an art team as well. Cook Serve 3, we added voice actors, full writing. And what kind of happened with the series is in Cook Serve 2, we hired a couple of guys to write our sort of just like inbox and emails that you would get throughout your campaign that you don't have to read it all. There's not a single thing that you have to read to accomplish the campaign or anything like that. They were just sort of side things. They hinted at a lot of things, though, a lot of weird things, strange things about the world that weren't quite like, wait, I thought we were in, kind of present day. I thought we were in my, my timeline, so to speak. And we leaned into that with 3. And what we did is we made it sort of this post-apocalyptic Mad Max food truck, kind of simulator. And that was a lot of fun, right? Because we were able to kind of take what was sort of behind the curtain, so to speak. Only the hardcore fans that really dug into the emails and knew anything about this kind of stuff. But they'd always say, what about the Blue War, with the robots fighting robots? What about this and that? And so we brought that to life in 3. And then in Cook Serve Forever, it actually takes that next leap into rebirth and regrowth and sort of post-apocalyptic scenarios. Yeah.
What makes the restaurant cooking sim genre something that you guys are so intrinsically tied to? What makes it fun for you to keep making new versions of it?
Sure. I feel like it's underserved. Like it's a really underserved, player base that are looking for these kind of games. It's hard to get it right. I think mechanically, and this is no slam on any cooking games out there, but I think it's tough. I think it's really hard to make a fun gameplay loop in a cooking game that makes you say, I want to keep coming back to this. Obviously, there's been some great successes. Overcooked is a great example. There's other like hardcore sims, cooking simulator, right? Like other kind of more specific sims. Like there's like brew pub and breweries, sims now.
I'm a big fan of Taco Master back in the day on Vita.
Yep. There's a one called Lemon Cake that's kind of a cool one. And then, of course, there's sort of off-the-wall ones like Pizza Tower that came out recently. It has nothing to do necessarily with necessarily restaurant management up front, but there's that.
Food adjacent.
Right, exactly. Culinary arts, so to speak. So, yeah, it's really cool to see all these games. But there's not a ton of them, right? There's not like this like mass, just a gluttony of titles to choose from. So we understand that first, what our bread and butter is, and what has made our company, money. We don't want to just ignore that. I think we have a nice marriage here with the Cook Serve series. We have other games in the pipeline that are not Cook Serve. In this market, we're looking for how to, potentially dismount from the Cook Serve series, like without stumbling. It's very challenging, and we don't want to belittle that challenge in any way. Like we've seen a lot of really strong devs that we're peers with that have struggled because they've made leaps to other properties or leaps to other genres that their community just doesn't necessarily come along with, because communities don't necessarily follow the devs, so to speak, if they're going to go all over the place. And as indies, that's something that you kind of have to live with if you want to do that. You know, you have to say, okay, I might have to rebuild a bit, not necessarily from scratch, but not everybody's going to come with me. And so we understand that. We have a really solid community for Cook Serve Delicious. We have huge Discord. We don't take that for granted. We don't just say, oh yeah, we're going to just be able to move off of that and start making other games. But at the same time, if we were in a situation where we were making the same kind of mechanical stuff for the last 10 years, we would be going insane, like absolutely insane, like losing our mind. So we've found this happy marriage of the design team and the production team saying, well, how can we push this out? How can we continue to explore this, this genre, this area of games, and bring something that's fresh to the table, that, when you play it, you're like, this is not just a Cook Serve Delicious game, but this is Cook Serve Forever. This is Cook Serve Delicious 3. This is Cook Serve 2. This is Cook Serve 1. You know what I mean? Like based on the experience you're having in that game, that it's not just a Cook Serve game. It's actually this particular specific game, right? And I think that's where I think a lot of indies like look at us and go, oh, you guys are just going the safe sequel route. Well, we see it safe as in playing with the community that's already supported us, continuing to fuel them and support them because they're going to support us, reciprocally and reciprocate that. So we're now like in a space where we're like, okay, we have this one branch in our business that's going to be kind of Cook Serve, and there's another branch that's going to be more experimental. Games like Chef Squad, which actually still was adjacent to Cook Serve, which was a Twitch only game where streamers would play with their chat and order them around like Chef Ramsay or something like that, right? Like, and you had to type really rapidly in chat, right? So, but we knew that wasn't gonna, like, we released that for free. We didn't really think that was like a prototype thing that we were saying, if this hits, we might make more Twitch games in the future. May explore the horror side of it, you know what I mean, with the Twitch kind of stuff, because Twitch loves horror and such. So there's just areas that we're looking at that we're saying, hey, this could be really cool. But for right now, we see that Cook Serve Forever, we had an opportunity with it budget-wise. We had an opportunity with it in terms of saying this might be like the last major big new IP for the Cook Serve series. We have some other ideas, but they'd be kind of one-offs or Cook Serve adjacents. And this is sort of a Cook Serve Delicious adjacent, right? Because it's Cook Serve Forever. It's not Cook Serve Delicious 4, or it's not Cook Serve Delicious Forever, which we did discuss and ultimately decide not to go with as a title, which I think a lot of people, we have mixed emotions.
Yeah, I did assume that.
Yeah. No, and it's been brought up. It feels like some people are like, it's a missed opportunity. We understand. But we did want this to stand alone a little bit. And there are some things to this. I think the big thing, and I'll let you guys fire some questions as opposed to just railroad this whole time.
No, you're fine.
You're good.
But I think the big thing is that the narrative side is a whole new level. We can talk about the difference between 3 and Forever after I take a drink. Maybe we can have you guys talk for a second while I take a break.
Well, yeah, like speaking of the narrative thing, I mean, I'm looking at your Steam page right now. Dozens of hours of gameplay. Like, is that like dozens of hours in terms of like narrative?
So you're going to see like a combination of like, we're promising there like dozens of hours of actual, like you'll be sitting with your controller playing the game, you know what I mean? As opposed to watching scenes. Those scenes are like additional to that, I believe. So you're looking at like, we have in CSD 1, 2, 3, I think CSD 1 and 2, with CSD 2, it was bigger and better. Let's add a bunch of foods. Let's add, like a tremendous amount of stuff. In 3, it was like, let's refine. Let's go all over the world. Let's add foods that people on every corner of the globe, which is not. I know I'm not saying it's a flat. It's a globe. But like every area of the globe can look at it and say, hey, I know that you guys are representing me. Like I can see my dish. I can see like my countries or my regions, like food, culinary, skills being showed off here. And there was a really cool satisfaction with it. But with all those additions, with like hundreds of foods, we lost that individual food like tactic, right? Like that everything felt like it's its own thing. CST1 kind of had that, right? Cutting up the fish, chopping the carrot for the stew. There was very specific things that you felt in CST1. Whereas 2 and 3, we just went big. We went really big. We added some different mechanics as well. The mechanics changed from 1 to 2, and then we're kind of built on into 3. But it was it was forever that said, let's go back a little bit. Let's look back. Let's kind of, we're still looking for, like you said, dozens of hours of content, but I don't think we need to just give everybody 230 hours of content when we know about 1% of our player base gets to that point.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, we need to be reasonable about that. It's like what I learned like 10 years ago with a different studio that, hey, you got to front load your good looking stuff. You know, a lot of these people aren't going to get to the back part or even the second half, or maybe even not even the second, you know, the last 75% of the game necessarily and stuff. So not necessarily backpack a bunch of, you know, your cool stuff because you want as many people as possible to see that. We just talked about that on the marketing side, right? So we definitely want as many people as possible to see it. So, so the narrative, as we were talking about like before, it sort of adds to things in a whole new way. With CSD3, we were able to do voice acting for the first time. We were able to, the cast was you as a chef who was silent and tired and exhausted a lot. And we,
as we all are.
Yeah. We put that in the art. He's always just leaning over his desk or whatever, just like hands like in his arms, you know, and just a heat because of that after getting through a long day. But his robot companions, Whisk and Cleaver, who are your driver and your gunner, respectively, in your food truck, they don't have to sleep, so they get to talk every night and they get to have these dialogues. And we got to kind of create that voice acting and that narrative design, you know, in that first full narrative design with CSD3, but it was limited, right? It wasn't like fully animated. The scenes always took place with the two of them sitting in the front of the truck, just talking kind of back and forth. CSF is like a fully animated. We're going to be in different spaces. We have, I think, a dozen voice actors for this, including like 3, you know, major characters. And we employ, I mean, those who know them, Elspeth, Nega Oryx, like huge streamers that are playing our voice actors as well. That actually Negs was Whisk from CSD3. So just really happy to work with her again. And it's been an amazing experience with them. We're actually going to, you know, grab a sound studio, meet them somewhere, and actually get to actually record with them. Much different than the indie experience normally, where you get on a virtual call, record all that kind of stuff. So we've been really putting in that extra mile because we want to. It's really fun. We enjoy that experience on that side. But we also know that we want this to be our biggest game to date in every single way possible. And we want people to feel that. We want people, when they play the demos, to say these menus are sleek, and they did. And I was happy with that. You know what I mean? Like right off the bat, like they're feeling that this is another level up from what we presented them production wise in CSD 1, 2, and 3. So we're really excited about that in particular.
How satisfying is that when you've made multiple versions of this game, and with the new one, people pick up on those little things that that you're like, oh, I want to do this better, and then you do it better, and people actually acknowledge it.
To me, it's the telltale sign that we have a good community, that we have a connected community that like is really looking after us. They're like our stewards that are like, hey, what are you guys up to? Let's look at this and let's give feedback on that. We've leaned into that since CSD 2. CSD 2, that was released 1.0 without any testing or major testing, I should say, or early access. It was tested by a small group of veterans of the CSD series. And that was not the right thing to do ultimately, because it went out to a lot of new players and a lot of other people that had played the game that weren't necessarily veterans of the series. And it was not something that was their speed, and it caused our production team to like spin its wheels and spend the next like 6 weeks in post-launch, like trying to come up with, you know, updates and new builds to try to satisfy the situation, because we were like massively upset and concerned we were going to drop with our Steam user reviews down to, you know, mixed or worse and all this. And it's just a situation where we did not understand how to do that with our audience that time around. So since then with CSD3, it's just been the exact opposite. What we'll do is we'll start sort of, you know, drip feeding folks into our early alphas. We have like what we call it, the taste tester group on our Discord. And that's like a special group that you have to sign up for, sign sort of a soft NDA for, because we're not like a huge company or anything like that, but just sort of a, hey, you know, you guys are gonna be testing things you can't talk about. And, you know, we have a few dozen there we encourage folks of, like super veteran status or even just people in the door on our Discord to sign up so that we have that really diverse, feedback. And then, we go the early access route. We understand that when you hit Steam, you hit Steam one time only. Like you do get to do 1.0 after early access, but it's not quite the same. Like it's not like this massive first time exposure like you get with early access. So we have this kind of pre-early access phase we're working through right now, and we want to get it to where the early access is still got some work left in terms of content additions. But other than that, it should be sparkling. And we understand that that's what people are looking for with early access nowadays. They really aren't going to buy a game that isn't already wowing them, isn't already capturing them in the core gameplay loop, you know what I mean? Like right off the bat, and gives them enough space and hours of gameplay to work with to say this is justified in the purchase.
I mean, yeah, like by day, I think I mentioned this to you on the side. Like I work in PR, and I know like a big thing that like a lot of players, influencers, all that stuff look for are roadmaps. Like that is the term of 2023 is roadmaps.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what
whether you're early access or not. Yeah, I mean, if you're post launch, right? Like people want to see what they're investing themselves into, like necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like cool. I paid $20 for this game. What's next?
Yeah, it can be a one-time experience. That's okay. It needs to be defined as that, though. People need to know that getting into it. And there's certainly the tug of war, as you probably know, working in marketing is we as indies can't always guarantee this additional content. Right. You know what I mean? Like we can't just say, oh yeah, we can totally commit to this, and then the money isn't there in terms of the sales. It doesn't make sense necessarily. So there, the sad truth of 2023 is that if you're going to be an indie that survives, you got to be about that business. You have to be focused like on the business aspects of this industry and surviving or thriving by going through those requirements that you need to say these are requirements. These aren't ancillary things. These aren't extra things. These aren't if I can get to them type of stuff. We need to make sure that we have whatever you want to call them, milestones or points on your pre-release, map where you're saying we're making big efforts, we're finding partners like the Mini Indie Showcase, etc., like to get to partner up with, because we ourselves cannot carry the day by ourselves all the time, and we know that. Our partners are like bridge to next year and the year beyond, and the year beyond that as a company, right? Like we need to continue to look for them, and the hard line is that a lot of indies maybe don't know that or feel that they're up to doing that or just don't feel like it and stuff. And so that's the hard choices that we have to make right now. Some indies are bulletproof, and can basically continue to do what they're doing without breaking stride and have no issue. But a lot of us have made major adjustments over the last 5 to 7 years, I'd say, as our platforms have evolved, as Xbox has come around with new ideas with like Game Pass, how that has gone over the last couple of years. Now it's in sort of a mid, possibly late game stage there. So there's this, you have to roll with the punches. And I'm sure, coming from that, we're all in this industry together. So it has been a certain, since, before I was even on the development side, it's always been about rolling with the punches in the games industry if you wanted to keep working in it. So, yeah.
And I think, one thing I feel like we should ask you, Eric, because you're on the producer side of things, I think you're the best person to answer this. We always say on the IndieCast almost all the time, and when we're doing this developer interviews for the showcase, and Mike knows it very well because now he works in PR. Can you tell everyone that is watching and listening, how important is it wishlisting games on Steam? Because we say it all the time, and I feel like being a veteran doing this is the fourth type of game, and being on Steam so prominently, how important is that for people to wishlist the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's massively important, obviously. I mean, I say obviously because you and I and three people talking to each other and understand the situation. It is so important. It's there's two things that, metrics wise that are really important for Steam right now, wishlisting, and now there's the ability to follow a game page or a developer or developer page, etc. And those follows are basically almost a level up of the wish list, because then you're getting emails on announcement posts on Steam and other aspects like that. When you wish list, you get locked into an email when the game releases, if it's pre-release, right? And then additionally, anytime it's at 20% or higher discount, you'll get an email notification about that as well. Obviously, that's like the linchpin for sales for Steam developers nowadays. If they're not selling at full price, and I can tell you about 98% of us are not selling enough at full price to justify not going on discount basically as often as possible. The other reason that we discount, I think, as often as possible, as a side note, isn't just because we're like, oh, we have to try to move these kind of units. You get extra exposure from these discounts. You get extra. Steam will, slot you higher and put you on specials lists when you're on discount. Will expose you to, users that haven't heard about your game before. So it's an important thing to do. Even if you're saying, look, we're doing well, we don't need to discount 75% off. Okay, great. Run at 20%, run at 10%, whatever's good. It may not move the needle, but it will bring more attention to in terms of raw sales. But it may bring more attention to your game, may add more wish lists to it, etc. So wish lists and follows, any kind of Steam interactions, right? Any kind of commitments through the platforms that you're purchasing these products through are so important. Like we get articles, we got, some really cool articles. Polygon covered us for the Steam Next Fest, Rock, Paper, Shotgun. Really excited to get that. Really adds some legitimacy, like to, like what we're doing and saying, hey, like, if we needed to talk to publishers, if we needed to, say, hey, we want to show, we have some legitimacy here that people have backed us on the press side, traditional and stuff. We have that right there. But, a Kotaku article isn't moving units necessarily for indies. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not necessarily what's doing it. Streamers as a whole can come together and help move units. Like it can get on a roll. Or obviously a major streamer can cover that, can make a big difference. And then there's a trickle down effect, right? And other streamers can cover and they can get on a nice roll there. But otherwise, you really want it direct from the source. Steam, if you can have interaction through Steam, then that is so huge. The wish list, the follow, additionally, some interactions on, obviously, if you can build a Discord, that's really good. If you can possibly get your own website going with followers on like your own forum, that's the best, because I don't know what Twitter's going to be like. I don't know what Discord's going to do in a year. And so we always have that concern when you built a really nice following, but it's not necessarily on a platform you own. And so, or that you have control over fully. So Facebook has pulled the rug, obviously, in the past on us. So there's just different aspects. TikTok will at some point pull the rug. Like it's the getting is good now, but for how long we don't know. And we know that historically it says that at some point the trap will sort of snap shut, and then we will have to pay for the exposure we're getting now, which is great exposure, by the way. So it's not like I'm not bitching at TikTok. They're fine. Like they've given us great exposure. like they've done some amazing things, but eventually that well will dry up, and we will have to be able to understand that. It's good to understand that ahead of time so that we can move on and keep going. So Steam is it, right? Steam's the constant. Hopefully Steam doesn't go away, right? Always a possibility as well. Everything out there, right, is a possibility, but feels very strong. Like, super strong platform. And from my interactions with their staff, they are doing what they can and doing strong efforts for us. We felt kind of lost a few years ago when it just seemed like the bigger games were going to continue to get the bigger shares. And that's how it goes. That's reality. And there's no big deal with that. It's just, it was like, how am I as an indie going to even get space? Like just this little tiny, percentage of space on this place to get some viewership, to get some discoverability. Because there was this feeling a few years ago that even if you did everything right, you could just get flushed down the drain, or I guess piled on with the now dozens and dozens and dozens of daily releases Monday through Friday on the storefront. So you have to understand there's so many things that go into, right, that pre-release to release aspect to go full circle on your question, Kyle. If I'm going into a release and I don't see tens of thousands of wish lists, I'm massively concerned. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, this is or downtrodden and depressed, because I know that I don't think it's going to do very well. Whereas where we're at now, going through these different events, and to have Mini Indie Showcase be kind of like right ahead of our early access launch, like awesome, really important, right? Because we're going to get some more wish lists coming in. That's what we need to see, because when we cross that threshold, those metrics will translate. Maybe not. You cannot say it's like the math is not exact, the science is not exact, right? Like the wish list to conversion of sales. I've heard good news from our side, like from outsiders, that if you have a hardcore community, your wish lists actually have a better chance of converting than say if they were just kind of pulled from piecemeal from this and that. So I think we're going to see what we saw right away when we first revealed our coming soon page, which is what we did about 8 or 9 months ago, Kyle, because we wanted to start our wish list roll. And that first day, there is no spike on our graph that will reach our first day, I believe, again. Like, because that we stuck the landing on it, but also that's when our community was ready to say, let's go. Like, let's do this. Let's wish list this now. I believe that will happen with Cooks Are Forever's like sales as well. Like day one will be like a blast. And then after that, we'll navigate from there and hopefully have a really nice graph and stuff. But we have to understand that it's not necessarily going to go any higher or like come in any faster than that first day, because that's true for most indies too. Like, you just want to be that one. It was like a Arrested Development thing where Tobias is like, no, that never works for anybody, but it could work for us actually. You know what I mean? And so that's the kind of feeling you get sometimes when you're like, maybe we'll buck the trend here, and hey, maybe you will, but you are definitely like of a 0.1%, out of 99.9% people who are games that don't buck that trend. So we're ready for that. We're excited based on what we're seeing with our wish lists. Kyle, it's like the single most important thing I've stressed over the last like year and a half for Cooks Are Forever is how do we get enough wish lists to take the gamble out of how much money we have put into this game and how it's going to release and how we feel that will turn around and immediately say this was worth your efforts. And obviously we love to profit, but the first thing is to get out of the red and to repay what we put into the game. And we feel like based off the wish list, we have a really strong chance of doing that. The market's weird. Anything can happen, right? But like you lessen your gamble by setting up those metrics ahead of time. And that's how we feel like we're at right now. We're feeling really strong. And yet I just told you I won't leave a stone unturned. I want to make sure nobody's heard of us. So you know what I mean? Like you gotta keep grinding on that. Like regardless of we have laurels to rest on, and we just can't. It's not the right call. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of to close things out, I do want to circle back to something you said earlier. You kept iterating on Quick Serve 1, Quick Serve 2, Quick Serve 3. Wow, that's really hard to say 3 times in a row. And I want to commend you guys on like, you guys seem like you are just really honing in on an indie spirit, and you are swinging for the fences with Cooks Are Forever. And I genuinely do think it's going to be pretty fucking massive.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's exactly how we feel. And everything that you love from the originals are going to be here too. The food's going to look, bomb.com. Like you're going to get hungry if you're not already hungry. If you are hungry, I recommend getting a snack before getting into it.
Sure. Is this going to translate to real life cooking skills? Will I be a better cook?
I feel like so I feel like it'll inform you, right? Like it'll inform you. Yeah. But like any simulation, when I go and play Satisfactory, I'm like, this would suck to do in real life. Like, you know what I mean? Like this would suck to actually have to do in real life. Even with all these automated stuff, this would totally suck to do in real life. But I have I enjoy that game so much just as a simulation. And I feel like, we actually hear it the other way around, Kyle. People will come home from work and be like, how can you do this to me? How can you release this game when I just came off an 8-hour shift?
I get that.
You know what I mean? On the short order breakfast, the 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. You know what I mean? So, no, I mean, I really feel like it'll inform you, especially if you look at some of the, like, I think Quick Serve 3 is great because it exposes you to foods that you've never even heard of. Like, and eventually you play it enough where you're like, you know what, I would try that. And you go find a way to make it happen, or maybe you make it yourself a lot of times because that's what you have to do. If it's a cuisine from across the world, you go, okay, well, I just have to go find the ingredients and put it up myself. So yeah, it's different Japanese dishes I tried that way. It's cool, man. Like, we're not sitting over here like with an actual kitchen, like, or anything like that. Like, David will actually profess that he hates cooking. Like, the original like designer of Quick Serve doesn't necessarily like love cooking at all. But he loves exploring, obviously, food, and he loves, he loves. We have on our Quick Serve Discord, one of our channels, and I'll wrap it up. I know we're about to wrap up, but one of our
That's
channels
okay.
that's really important to us is the research and development, which is sharing your real life dishes. Whether
awesome.
you're at a restaurant or a lot of people have just taken over and they're just making amazing food. And it's really cool to see the process. And that's probably the next step, Kyle, in terms of going from the game itself to seeing some of these people actually put together, mimosas and things like that, or not mimosas, but like samosas. And like, I would want to make my own sopapillas. I love that, like at the restaurant. But I'm like, oh, can I fry my own? That kind of stuff. You see the process of them actually laying it out in 12 picture steps, and you're going, that does look really good, and it doesn't look as challenging as you might think. With as much as most cooking is, it's about setting up the ingredients and timing yourself and scheduling yourself right. It's not some sort of massive brain curdling exercise or anything like that. In most cases, I should cook more. Is how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the next secret game. It's Cook Serve AR, where people like are.
We
the
were
camera.
this close 5 years ago to doing Cook Serve
Wow.
Delicious VR, or Cook Serve Cook Serve Delicious 3 at one point was Cook Serve Delicious 3D. So that was the but we Cooking Sim, some other folks got in there on the 3D side, and we said they're taking care of it fine. And
they got it.
And then Cook Serve Food Truck was still an idea, but that's what ended up merging into Cook Serve 3. So yeah, it was Cook Serve Food Truck.
That's
Truck
awesome.
became Cook Serve 3. So yeah, anyway, thanks so much, you guys, for having me on.
Of course.
Of course. Eric, before we let you go, where could people play Cook Serve Forever? When could they play it? And how could they follow along?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Cook Serve Forever is coming out in Q2 of this year. We're going to have a release date announcement shortly. We unfortunately have to work with some other partners before we can really, bring that to public light. But we will have that out soon. For now, you can wishlist the game on Steam. It's also, I think, yes, you can wishlist also on Epic Game Store, Gamersgate, Fanatical, and Humble Store will also be carrying the games at early access launch as well. So depending on, if you're into, off Steam, we'll have opportunities for you on the PC side. Consoles still working those out. Cook Serve Delicious 3 was on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. And we expect Cook Serve Forever to be on those latest platforms of those platform holders when we get to 1.0, which may not be until late 2023 or early 2024, based on our roadmap and based on kind of how that content rolls out. The game should be more or less feature complete on release, on early access release, but we'll be adding chunks of content to the campaign as we move through, as well as the one feature that we will be adding later on, because we wanted to get the early access out before delaying X amount of time, is the co-op. The co-op will be added in the middle of early access. So we will have this, big co-op update in the middle of the year as well. So really excited about that. And yeah, you can follow us on Twitter at Vertigo Gaming Inc. VG Inc. VG Inc. That's talking about things hard to say. And then our Discord is the Cook Serve Delicious Discord as well. On our Twitter, if you go to there, you can find our link tree, which has basically everything if you'd like to find us on your platform of choice.
You can also find it on 61indie.com/showcase. Click the Cook Serve Forever key art, and all the links will be there for you. Convenient.
Yeah, that's my bad for forgetting about that one, Mike.
No, it's fine. That's my job. I have to plug our own stuff. You got your stuff. I got my stuff.
For real.
Eric, thank you again so much for not only partaking in the showcase, but sitting down with us. It's been a delight. Maybe for a future mini indie showcase, we get to work together again on secret games. Who knows?
I would love that, Kyle. Mike, the pleasure's been all mine. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Well, y'all, if you don't know what the hell the mini indie showcase is, why are you here? Go watch it. Go to 61indie.com/showcase. You can see games such as Cook Serve Forever and 32 other incredible indie games that we got to show off in March of 2023. I just brain dead for a second. Thank you, Kyle. But yeah, I've been Mike. That's been Kyle. Eric, thank you again. We will catch you later.
Play more indies. Love
Play
you.
more indies.
Never